to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mandy, would you please call the roll?
Anstra?
Yes.
Randall?
Here.
Butler?
Here.
Carlstone?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Anstra?
Here.
The City Council has adopted a code of civility. As elected officials, we pledge to promote civility through extending respect to others, listening to understand, disagreeing without disrespect, engaging collaboratively, and speaking up to address incivility. Just as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and broadcast for Pella TV, so anyone who wishes to speak to council, please come to that podium and microphone before speaking so that those listening at home can hear your comments and see you on camera. Can I get a motion for approval of the tentative agenda?
So support.
Mr. Island, Branderhorst, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Anstra?
Yes.
Randall?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Carlstone?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Anstra?
Yes.
Motion passed. At this time, I'd like to appoint Harry Ehrlich to the Neighborhood Revitalization Grant Committee. Mr. Ehrlich brings 37 years in municipal and public agency experience in public safety, community services, public works, parks, and facilities maintenance. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support.
Branderhorst and Stryland, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Randall?
Yes.
Anstra?
Yes.
Anstra?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Carlstone?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion passed. This time we have an opportunity for public forum. Anyone wishing to address council regarding any agenda item, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Go.
Kathy Dow, 625 Highway T14. Mr. Mayor, during the last city council meeting, you said that we should reach out to Central because they have most of the answers to the questions we were asking. Under public pressure, the college agreed to a public forum to share with the rest of us, something that should have been done immediately following the meeting you participated in, along with leadership from local corporations. I was happy to see some of our council members at that meeting last night, as they too have been left out of that previous meeting. What I learned in the public forum last night was that what this ordinance is putting forward is a concept, not a plan. It's the approval of an orange blob. Both of those things were said repeatedly last night. If I had realized at the beginning of the evening how many times President Putnam would repeat this as a concept, not a plan, I would have tried to keep count. As I said last night, what I heard them say was the college wants to control the land, who the developer will be, what the developer will be allowed to build. This is only a concept, not a plan, but they would like to use taxpayer money in TIF form to help pay for a part of this. This is a private college. They have many alumni who have done well in life, some who sit before us tonight. These alumni I know experience these living quarters that the college wants to replace. The college is quite welcome to raise their own funds to build the new housing they need for their students and keep the taxpayers out of it. As was mentioned last night, historically they have had very successful fundraising campaigns. If our city council will now vote no on this ordinance tonight, at the bare minimum, I see no reason this proposal shouldn't be tabled until such a time as the college can come forward with more specifics than a concept. The other main talking point last night was about the type of housing Central would like to have built. There was a lot of talk about rentals and about how young professionals are clamoring for rentals. Never in my life have I heard anyone's grand dream of being able to live in an apartment someday. I double-checked with Google. I'm happy to report that the American dream continues to be financial stability, owning a home, and ensuring that each generation does better than the one before it. According to the most recent Census Bureau data, our rental prices are higher than surrounding towns already. Who here is under the illusion that the rent on a brand new apartment building is going to be affordable to someone making $50,000 or $60,000 a year when many of the current rentals in town are already out of reach. Finally, again, do we need housing in Pella? Yes, but it's our city's own 2024 housing needs assessment told us the lowest need was rentals and the greatest need was senior housing. No aspect of the Imagine More project presented last night touches the actual needs of the community according to the city's own studies. If the college cannot present to the public a plan with details, not just a concept, I believe it would be a great disservice to the citizens of this town to pass this ordinance. Again, I ask at a bare minimum that this be tabled tonight, with Central needing to present details, not just a concept.
Anna Rupert, 1104 Peace Street. Over the past several weeks, I reviewed the housing studies, the comprehensive plan, the blight assessments, Central College's master plan, its financial strategy behind the Imagine More proposal. After reviewing those, I've come to view this as primarily a financial strategy rather than an infrastructure proposal. Central has made it clear that it does not intend to sell this land. Instead, it plans to retain ownership, lease the land to private developers, and generate long-term lease income. That may be a very reasonable business strategy for the college. But tonight's question isn't about whether it's a good strategy for Central. It's a question about whether it justifies the use of urban renewal. This vote will not approve future buildings shown on the conceptual plan, but it does establish the public framework that allows this redevelopment strategy to move forward. Throughout this process, I've raised concerns that the publicly available housing studies do not clearly support the development or this kind on this scale. If the need is as strong as suggested, then I believe it should be demonstrated with evidence, not simply anecdotal. I also want to be clear that a no vote is not a vote against Central College. Central is one of Pella's greatest assets, and I want it to thrive. They do a lot for our town. But supporting Central does not require supporting every financial proposal it brings before the city. Last night, Central assured us that it is not in danger of closing, and I'm glad to hear that. But that also changes the question before council. If this is not an immediate institutional crisis, and if the blight assessment describes a future risk impact if buildings are left to deteriorate, keep in mind the language says that they are not currently harming the downtown or the surrounding neighborhood, then why is it necessary for the city to establish an urban renewal area today? What I've heard is that this is Central's preferred long-term strategy. What I haven't heard is why is this the only strategy, or why public participation is necessary before that rental need has been demonstrated. Finally, I hope this process gives us something to reflect on moving forward. Central has said that Pella is one of its greatest assets. I believe that is true, but community is more than its major employers, donors, and board members. It's also our neighbors, tenants, and residents who will live with the consequences of these decisions. Public engagement shouldn't begin after a conceptual plan has already been developed. It should have helped shape the plan from the beginning. For those reasons, I respectfully ask you to reject the Imagine More urban renewal proposal as presented. Because in the end, I believe one principle should guide this decision. Urban renewal should exist to solve public needs, not to make a private real estate strategy financially viable. Thank you.
John Vanstra, rural Mahaska County. As you know, last night Central held a meeting to inform the public. Several of you were there. Many in the audience were also there. And at the conclusion of that, many questions were still left to be unanswered. So I respectfully ask the councils to either table this thing until more information is known and the public is more informed. I mean, when we started this process, we didn't even know what TIF was going to be impacted. We have until December to decide how this should go. Take some time and slow the process down and then decide if it's a good plan or not. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Gene Williamson. I live at 1220 Broadway. My wife and I moved to Pella 26 years ago because we saw a town where we could raise our family. A town that was family-oriented, safe, had outstanding schools, was a progressive community, vibrant, with a variety of community opportunities for our family. Pella is still like that today. We are excited to be in Pella. Today you will vote on the third reading of the Urban Renewal Plan before you. This is an opportunity for the City of Pella, Central, employers, and our community to come together and explore the possibility of using underutilized land for the benefit of all involved. A yes vote today supports the proactive approach our community has historically taken with urban renewal opportunities. Pella Boss Landon Urban Renewal, Pella High Point Urban Renewal, Pella Mill Farm Urban Renewal, Pella Corridor Area Urban Renewal, Pella Southwest Urban Renewal, Pella Lely Urban Renewal, Pella Prairie Ridge Residential and Commercial Renewals. Let's explore these possibilities. A no vote today would indicate that you as a council are not interested in even considering how all parties could benefit. Stifling future progress and improvement this urban renewal area could provide. Today I ask you to support the urban renewal plan. I sincerely do appreciate the commitment you have all made to this community that we live in. I'm so thankful to all of you for the time and effort that you put into making this into the betterment of Pella. Thank you.
Good evening. Karen Eischen, 119 Amsterdam Drive, also the Executive Director of the PACE Alliance. And I just have a couple of comments tonight. Just that we have the opportunity that most communities dream about. The ability to thoughtfully develop land that's already inside our city limits, already with infrastructure ready. That saves so much money on a taxpayer down the road when we don't have to develop a bare piece of ground. It will also create new tax incentives that developers want to see before they come in. So this does need to be in place before a plan can be made for them to even look at opportunities like this. It will attract high quality workforce. It's what we're hearing over and over. And I know our housing study doesn't show a need for 1,300 units, but it does show a need for 280 units in the next 8 years. But we need to plan beyond that because we are going to grow. We have lots of studies that do show that. Our companies are telling us this. We need to prepare and we need to plan very thoughtfully. And simply creating a toolbox that will allow us to think beyond those borders, take advantage of land inside city limits, which is ripe for development and currently underutilized, is a great step in that direction. And I encourage you to vote yes on the ordinance, and then we will carefully decide as plans come about, as developers step forward, if that is the right move for the community and for the developer. Thank you very much.
to the central program last night, and I feel it's been well thought out, and it is a concept, as you say, as everyone says, and I think it would be well worth investigating further. So I would urge you to vote yes for this. Thank you.
David Smith, 604 East 3rd Street. I also went to the central presentation last night. I do still hold the position that I believe this proposal should be at least pushed back until a more holistic plan is put in place that more accurately reflects the needs and values of our town and its real estate market. And with this being the final reading of the proposal, I just want to take a moment to encourage all you council members that regardless of the outcome of this vote, we do trust you to do your due diligence on any project or development that is suggested, and protect the Christian, family-friendly values of this town and do what's best to protect our Pella heritage. So thank you for your service. Thank you.
Karma Ruthven, 300 West 5th Street. I was there last night too, and I just have a thought or question. It was constantly said last night that Central was gonna pick their builder and all that, and they were gonna let the landlord take care of the rental and all that. Well, I don't know if that would be a wise decision, because from what I know of out west of town, people are complaining about the rentals there and that the landlords there are not providing adequate help that they need in regards to the management of their building. And so I just kind of wonder, they were very adamant that they were gonna be in control of all that. But once you get the builder with the landlord or however, they no longer are gonna have control over it. And so that is my concern in regards to the people that would be living there, how well they would be provided, or incidents of they'll need somebody else to be able to call versus the landlord, if the landlord does not do his or her part. So, and I too agree it should be tabled yet. Thank you.
Carol Williamson, 1220 Broadway. Central College was delighted to host the public meeting last night, and I thank those who were there. Over 100 attended, and many questions were asked and comments given. The discussion was rich and full. The panel members stayed after until all questions had been asked and relayed that to those that were there. It covered all that was presented at the May 19 City Council Planning and Policy meeting here. So all that information was shared for the public at the May 19 meeting. So why is it that Pella continues to be so successful year after year and been so successful through the decades? It is because from the point of Pella's founding and the settlers who came here, they have worked together and collaborated together to make this place work well. Why was Don DeWard, Mayor of Pella, little town Pella, selected to go to Washington, D.C. to meet with our country's leaders about how successful Pella is? Why is it that our public pool is one that is utilized by citizens from our community and many surrounding communities? Why does our Pella Community Center have the opportunity for renewal when many other communities would have boarded it up, let it stand empty, or torn it down? Why is our work-based learning program, Work Smart Connector, a model for other communities and used as a standard for the state of Iowa? Why is it that our annual festival attracts thousands of visitors each year? It is because we, the citizens of Pella, work hard together. We work hard to be successful, innovative, and support growth. This collaboration between the community of Pella and Central College is yet another example of being forward-thinking, looking to the future, so that our local businesses, both large and small, continue to not stagnate, but to see growth and development for years to come. I encourage you to vote yes tonight for the ordinance before you. Thank you so much for your time.
Good evening, Ron Rosenboom, 510 East First. You missed me. The Central College thing, we had 3 councilmen 2 weeks ago. Didn't talk real favorable for it, but we passed it. I believe it was Mr. Hopkins says, and the council agreed that we had until the end of the year to make this happen. I believe a few of you was going to the TIF program to find out what was going on with the new TIF laws at the first of the year. It was discussed at that point in time that was trying to possibly shove this through, ramrod this through. And I see that's pretty much what happened. We kicked the second reading out, now we're ready for the third one, 3 weeks in a row. How's anybody ever done any math on this? The big question I have is, when are we going to get our money back? You go spend all our TIF money, when are we going to get that money back? What's it going to cost the City of Pella to put Central College into the real estate business? As the lady says, Central College has enough money. They just had $53 million something or other for scholarships. They'd go put in a lot of infrastructure. And I encourage you to not pass this, because this is how the airport went, and that drug out 18 years, whatever. And now that's a dead horse. So, thanks. I'll be back.
Hi, I'm Sue Van Bark. I do not live in the city limits, but I live at 1051 216th Place. I have a building at 701 Franklin, I guess it is. So I have a real interest in the city. I was at Central College for 46 years as an employee. I don't know about zoning and all that. My question to everybody here is, what's going to happen when you combine, in my words, townies with the central kids? You talked about how there'd be a path. They could walk to the campus, they could walk to town. Okay, the first bicycle that's taken from a townie, you're going to blame a college student. College students, do they want to share? Are you going to let them share your property? Are you going to let them use your tennis courts? They're living on your land. Are you going to let them use your gym, your baseball diamonds? What are you going to do this way? It's not just zoning, it's life after that. It's got to be checked out, and where are they going to park? You know, employees have trouble parking, and that will be taken care of with more land. But I think you need to really table it, consider it, all of it. Not just, you know, the zoning and all the legal stuff, but the practical, the real human side. Thank you.
Anyone else?
For a while, I wasn't sure I was at the right meeting because I'm addressing you on a different topic. I'm Carol Van Klompenberg. I live at 808 Big Rock Park Road. You recently appointed me to be a trustee on the Pella Library Board, and thank you for that privilege. I appreciate it. started on the library board, just this year, I think I came to my first meeting in April, and the board was discussing a renovation of the library, and I thought, oh, that might be a nice idea. Then, yesterday, as required as a trustee of the board, I took a required tour of the library and learned step by step exactly what was part of what was being planned. And I saw the flow of the library. I saw the separated area that would be separated by a half wall and lower shelves for the children's department, where mothers would be able to keep track of their children more easily. I saw a designated teen area that was going to be coming, decorated in a way that would appeal to teens. I saw that a loft would be coming with room for the magazine collection and the heritage collection. And that would be accessible by an elevator, which the shaft was put in when it was built in 2000. So it's elevator ready. None of this would change the footprint of the library. And then, instead of thinking, well, that might be a good idea, I became excited about it. I thought, wow, how much better our library would be able to serve the many people who use its services. And I just wanted you to know about that change and that excitement that has come to me as a member of the board as I now see what this improvement would offer. Thanks.
All right, seeing no one stepping up, I think we'll move on. Can I get a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved. Support.
Manstrove and Stryland, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Veenstra?
Yes.
Van Strylen?
Yes.
Vanderhorst?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Carlstone?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Moving to resolution number 7101 entitled Resolution Approving Consulting Services Agreement with Greenwood Consulting for the West Washington Street, West 8th Street to T15 Corridor Improvement Study. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. And for those in attendance and those watching at home on Pella Fiber, I'd like to direct your attention to the big board for a brief presentation on this item. As Mayor DeWard explained this evening, what we have is an agreement with Greenwood Consulting, and this is for a traffic analysis on the Washington Street corridor. And as Mayor DeWard stated, the geographical scope of the analysis extends from West 8th Street all the way up to T15. So it's basically on Washington Street, this colored area that we have here. They're identified by each individual segments in the analysis that we have up here as well. Now, some of the items that we will be looking at in addition to is just the traffic flow and traffic analysis, and ultimately, what is the service level, the intended service level on Washington Street? Currently, the majority of this segment of the road is a 2-lane road, but there is thought and preliminary indications that the traffic levels currently there could justify a 3-lane road on as well, and that's the intention of the study. But we're also going to be looking at associated utilities. In addition, we're also going to be looking at trails as well as pedestrian movement along the corridor. Now, as far as the study is concerned, the estimated fees that we have for the analysis is $17,700, and based on the notice to proceed, Mr. Veenstra's firm believes they can complete this within 4 months. And I would also like to mention that this is the same agreement that we discussed at Policy and Planning on July 7th with the City Council. And with that, Mr. Mayor, we are recommending approval this evening.
All right, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
Support.
Carlstone and Van Strylen, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Carlstone?
Yes.
Van Strylen?
Yes.
Vanstra?
Yes.
Vanderhorst?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to resolution number 7102 entitled Resolution Approving and Accepting the Public Improvements for the Library HVAC Modifications Phase 1 project. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As Mayor DeWard stated, what this resolution would do is accept the HVAC improvement project that was recently completed at the Pella Community Library. What we do is have a description of the project up here listed on the big board. It is important to note that the engineer for the project was Veenstra & Kim, and they believe the project was completed within the approved plans and specifications well. Now, as far as the contract was concerned, we started off with a contract of $243,500 for the project. I'm happy to report there's no change orders on this project this evening, so the final amount is still at $243,500. And with that, Mr. Mayor, we are recommending approval this evening.
All right, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Van Strylen? Carlstone, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Carlstone.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion passed. Resolution number 7103 entitled Resolution Authorizing Execution of a Funding Agreement with the Heart of Iowa Regional Transport Agency. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, once again, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the big board for a presentation on this item. As Mayor DeWart stated, we are proposing an agreement this evening with HRDA, and HRDA provides transportation services within our community. It is important to note that we did discuss this agreement with the City Council, I believe, in May of this year, and we do have one important note to make that happened subsequently to the meeting in May. With that, during the May meeting, when we had the HRDA folks in attendance, the city's current transportation services that HRDA provides is basically Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. After the HRDA representatives made their presentation to the City Council, their board did decide to reduce the service hours to 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Now, with that, it is important to note staff did follow up on it. Some information that we received from HRDA is in their 9-county service area, there's currently only 3 communities that are currently not paying anything to HRDA for this, or not paying the $2 per capita, what HRDA is charging the City of Pella. Everyone else is paying the $2 per capita. What they also stated for those communities is their service is limited to 2 days per week, and they stated next year, so this would be starting on July 1st, 2027, there's been discussion of HRDA that if those communities or communities do not pay HRDA, they may not have transportation services in their community as well. But what they informed us was that they had felt the need to reduce services. They're trying to work with cities, and they thought that was the most economical way is to reduce an hour per day. They looked at the service calls at all across their service territory, the 9 counties, and they determined that the 4 to 5 p.m. had the least amount of service calls and would be the least service disruptions for their clientele as well. So that's the reason they made the decision. Now, with that being said, this information should have been communicated to the City Council beforehand. It wasn't, but after doing due diligence on this, staff believes that this is being administered equally across the HRDA service territory. And it also appears, based on our conversation, that HRDA is in a position that if communities don't pay for transportation services, there's likely going to be additional cuts to the services within the community. So we are recommending this contract this evening. Now, as far as the contract is concerned, it's for fiscal year 27, which extends through June 30th, 2027. The amount that we are paying to HRDA is the same as what we're currently paying at $21,640. And Mr. Mayor, we are recommending approval this evening.
All right, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Vanderhorst, Carlstone, any discussion?
When the presentation was made, Mike, was the hour cut known then already or not?
We don't know on
Okay.
that. We just know that the board took action after our meeting, so.
All right, anything else? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Carlstone.
Yes.
I believe Hopkins dropped off the line. Hopkins, Pena. Van Strylen.
Yes.
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving to ordinance number 1090, entitled an ordinance providing that general property tax levied and collected each year on all property located within the Imagine More Community Urban Renewal Area in City of Pella, County of Marion, State of Iowa, by and for the benefit of the State of Iowa, City of Pella, County of Marion, Pella Community School District, and other taxing districts be paid to a special fund for payment of principal and interest on loans, monies advanced to, and indebtedness, including bonds issued or to be issued, incurred by the city in connection with the Imagine More Community Urban Renewal Area, the Imagine More Community Urban Renewal Plan. This is the third reading. Mike?
We lost the audio, so I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm
Oh,
gonna dial
sorry.
back in.
Welcome to the audio conferencing center. Please enter a conference ID, followed by pound. You are now joining the meeting.
Go ahead.
You are not allowed to unmute. To raise your hand, press *5.
Ignore that.
Okay, Mike was going to explain this ordinance change, or ordinance that we're discussing.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this ordinance. And as Mayor DeWard stated, we are considering an ordinance this evening. And just to elaborate on this, and it's closely tied to the urban renewal plan. Now, a little bit of background on this. The City Council approved the Imagine More Urban Renewal Plan on July 7th this year. And I'm going to give a little bit of context on the urban renewal plan because it's separate and distinct from the ordinance that we're considering this evening, but they are closely related. Now, from the city standpoint, an urban renewal plan is the first step in the development process. It's also required under state law. And typically, when cities look at long-term urban renewal plans or long-term plans, they're over a period of 20 plus years. This particular plan encompasses a planning period of 23 years. And so when we look at the urban renewal plan on it, the council approved the urban renewal plan on July 7th. That is a planning document from the city's standpoint. Now, as far as the goals of the planning document, what the goal of the plan was to eliminate blight and encourage elimination of blighted buildings through economic development and redevelopment of portions of the Central College campus. Now, as far as context on this, Central College has previously analyzed their housing needs over the long term. They believe they have some existing facilities that could be redeveloped to support the city's housing needs. And that's really the genesis of this plan. The city hired an independent contractor to go out and review the buildings on the Central College campus, and they reviewed 58 of the buildings on the campus, and they found that 40% of the buildings contained elements of blight on it. Now, that's important when we consider urban renewal plans, because as part of the urban renewal plan, the city council that was approved also designated this area as a blighted area under there as well. State law requires, when you look at buildings, that if you have 25% or more of the buildings within an urban renewal that are blighted, that blight designation is important. And so in this case, we had 40% of the structures within the urban renewal plan that were designated as blighted. So it met the state law requirements for it as well. Now with that, we'll explain that here in a little bit, but basically the blight designation gives long-terms, the city council some additional economic development incentives on there at their fingertips with the blight designation. So it's important to the city as well. Now, one of the items that we need to cover, since we're talking about a planning document and kind of rehashing the Imagine More Urban Renewal Plan, is this would be classified from a planning perspective as an infill housing, infill development on it as well. And we'll have a map here very shortly of it. And what I mean by infill is if you look at the Central College campus, we have a lot of public streets that are either run through the campus or abut the campus on this as well. The campus is fully served by city utilities. And what I can attest after being years involved with economic developments, that's probably the number one impediments for new developments in the community is the cost of extending public infrastructure. So when we talk about redevelopment of the campus, one of the key things that we always look from a planning standpoint is infill developments. Let's take advantage of the current public infrastructure because it's less costly for the city to do that rather than extend public infrastructure out in the future. So again, the urban renewal plan from the city standpoint, simply a planning document that was approved by the City Council on July 7th. Now, what's closely associated with the urban renewal plan is the TIF ordinance that we're considering this evening. And I'm going to skip around a little bit in the presentation, but let's cover, Heidi, let's go to the next slide and cover a few of these bullet points that we can. Now, as far as the TIF ordinance that we have this evening, what this is the legal mechanism that we're establishing to capture future property tax revenues from new buildings that do not exist, but may be built in the future. And that's important when we talk about capturing those property taxes from new buildings, because by capturing the property taxes, the city could, at that point, either use that as far as economic development incentives for developers or fund public infrastructure projects that are authorized in the urban renewal plan.
Mike, just a second. Mandy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm working on it.
I'm working on it. Just keep it going.
Sorry, Mike.
Okay, that's no problem. So this will be clear very, very soon. But the ordinance, so we've got an urban renewal plan, the city council's already approved on it as well. That's a long-term planning document for the city of Pella, but it encompasses 23 years. It does not obligate the city of Pella to do anything in this area. All that we've simply done is say that the city council may redevelop this in the future if they choose to do so on it as well. So that's very important to keep in mind. This is nothing more than a planning document that's been approved. Talk about this ordinance. We said it's the legal mechanism to capture new property taxes from buildings that may be built in this area. So Heidi, let's go to slide 11 if we could, please. One more, please. Okay. This is the urban renewal plan that was approved by the city council in the geographical area. The ordinance that we're considering this evening is simply it establishes this boundary in the city code, and it's a mechanism that allows this county auditor to segregate this area. And in the future, if we have new buildings, keep in mind that a majority of the buildings that are located in this area are on the Central College campus. They're tax exempt. They're not paying any property taxes. What this ordinance does is allows the county auditor to segregate this area, and if we have taxable buildings built on the campus in the future, we can segregate those property taxes and those get reverted back to the city of Pella, which we could potentially use for economic development incentives if the council chooses to do so. This is the ordinance that we're considering. What this ordinance would do is allow future councils to have the benefit of being able to capture future developments out here and actually be able to develop the campus if you choose to do so. That's all it is on it. The urban renewal plan's already been approved. The ordinance itself does not obligate the city to do anything. It's just a mechanism that allows us to capture the valuation of property taxes from new buildings that currently do not exist. But if they're built in the future, we can capture those property taxes and either use it for economic development incentives or fund public infrastructure. In the urban renewal plan that was approved on July 7th, there was over $20 million of public infrastructure projects listed in the plan. And this is a long-term planning document, and the city oftentimes uses TIF and other TIF districts to fund public infrastructure projects. That's been one of our formulas financially, and I would say that's been one of our successful financial formulas is funding public infrastructure for urban renewal plans. So with $20 million on there, those are existing public streets by a large majority of them. Most of those streets in the next 23 years are going to need to be redone, whether there's an urban renewal plan or not. This gives the city council the ability to help finance portions of those projects if they choose to, with valuations for new buildings that do not exist currently right now. That's all this ordinance does, is it sets up the formal mechanism if council chooses to do something or have an economic development project in the future. That is all we're considering. We're going to elaborate very soon on the economic development process for the city of Pella, which is very extensive as well. But Heidi, let's go back to the presentation again, please. I know I'm jumping around on you. So again, I think we've stated all these as well on here, on this. But keep in mind, approval of the ordinance doesn't obligate the city council to do anything on it. It sets up a future framework in case they choose to do something as well. And I want to say, choosing to do something in the future, there's an extensive process from the city standpoint, and I think there's a considerable amount of vetting that's going to go along for any public project that receives economic development incentives. And I think that's the key thing to keep in mind as well. So Heidi, let's go ahead, please. Let's go to slide 9. And I've tried to summarize the city's development process, but it's a pretty in-depth process. And if you wanted to look on these 7 steps, where we're at right now, I'd say we are at step half, right here. This is step 1. The urban renewal plan is a planning document for the city of Pella. We've approved that. The ordinance, this is what we are considering. If we approve the ordinance, we're at step 1. That's all we've done. There's been no authorization for public funds, no economic development incentives awarded, no rezoning of properties. Nobody is turning dirt on the project as well. But let's give an example if we did have a building that would actually be built on the Central College campus. And I know we covered this last time, and I'll try to be brief this time. The very first thing, if you look at the Central College campus, is we have a big urban renewal plan. Keep in mind that urban renewal plans need to include full taxing parcels on the Central College campus. And maybe a little off on this is somewhere between 3 to 5 parcels in total as well. So you have to include all their parcels on it, so that's why we have a majority of the campus that's in this plan. The actual development area will be about 35 acres of campus, of college campus on it. So if you were to look at the very first thing, if you had someone that wanted to build a taxable building, private developer that's going to come on and build a taxable parcel, there's a series of steps that would need to occur at the City of Pella. The first thing right out of the chute that we would do is it's likely going to require a rezoning for the city. Now, if you've ever been through a rezoning action at the City of Pella, you know it's a lengthy process by itself. It takes about 90 days with that. But when we rezone property, you will actually have a project at hand on it. So you will have an identifiable project, and you'll have a location of that project. And the rule of thumb is, we also have two bodies that need to review that action. One of them is the Planning and Zoning Commission. The second one's the City Council on it as well. Now, as a part of the process, anyone that lives within 200 feet of the development site will receive a mail notice from the City of Pella. We're also going to put advertisements in the paper as well. So you're gonna know if there's a development action on the property as well. So rezonings, that's an ordinance change, neighbor notification. So during the rezoning process, we're gonna talk about land use issues on it. We're gonna talk about any land use conflict issues come up on this. That's quite frequent. So all these land use compatibility issues, parking issues, you name it, that typically comes up during rezoning processes and the discussion of it. So again, there's an extensive outreach on this. That takes between the public meetings, we'll have one at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there could be another 3 to 4 at the City Council meeting. So somewhere between 3 to 5 meetings as well. If the rezoning is approved, and keep in mind, we said that Central College campus is made up of 3 to 4 large parcels, it's likely that we're going to have a subdivision approved for this, for the parcel, subdivided process. That's a separate legislative process on it. So Central College is gonna have to come with a plan that identifies a subdivision. Now with subdivisions, there's 2 types of plats involved. They're gonna have to finalize a preliminary plat, which identifies all the public infrastructure needed for that subdivision as well. And then there's the final plan. That's the document that gets recorded in Marion County. It's been my experience, the platting process from preliminary plat to final plat usually takes between 6 to 9 months on it. The final plat is usually not accepted by the City Council until after the building's actually built and all public improvements are completed as well. So again, those are additional meetings, and usually about 3 additional public meetings on it as well. So that's part of this building, the one building on as well. Now, if we have the building on it as well, it's likely, in my opinion, that building's gonna require a design review permit by the city's community development committee. This is important because we've heard a lot of comments, and there's been, by the way, there's been a lot of good public comments as well with it. And we wanna make sure that the city likely will be addressing all those issues. It comes just in different stages. That's the important thing to keep in mind. There's no one stop, fix everything, approve everything. That does not happen in city government. This happens over a series of meetings. So we'll have the design review committee that will look at nothing but the aesthetics of the building and whether that building fits in with the existing neighborhood on it as well. And so that's step 4. Now, if we get through the first 4 steps, where the rubber hits the road is if we have a project that's requesting economic development incentives for the City of Pella, we have a process that's established, and it's all based on public need. It's what the City of Pella's needs are, what is the public benefit on it as well. That's gonna have to get articulated on this as well. Now, with the development agreement, we do an extensive amount of vetting of developers. We're also doing an extensive financial review. The city has a separate economic development review committee that will review any development applications or economic development applications. They will make a recommendation to the full council, and the full council will take action on it. Any type of development agreement that's approved by the city on that is about 50 to 60 pages. It's very comprehensive. And it's all contingent upon the developer meeting every zoning and local code ordinance in the City of Pella, every state code, and every federal code as well. So there's not, this is a very extensive process, but there will be a significant amount of vetting. And you will know if that's occurring as well, but that's when we've heard the comments about public funds, payback on projects, what's the city's risk. That's step 5 right here, and that only occurs if you get through the first 4. And I'd like to say, it would be problematic on any of these 4 if there's a no vote by the Pella City Council or the Planning and Zoning Commission. That would throw probably at least delay things on it as well. You usually have to come through this process unblemished for a project to actually be built as well. Step 6, if we approve a development agreement, we have separate planning that's called a site plan. That's where we're gonna look at the site plan. We're gonna look at all the public infrastructure out there. We'll have a professional engineer review it. And oftentimes when you look at these large developments, or let's just assume it is a large development, we'll do an independent traffic analysis on it just to make sure we understand the traffic impact, with the goal of also stating that we want to understand what the impact of the development is on the traffic, if the public streets are gonna be adequate enough to handle the development as well. That's part of the site planning process. We're also gonna be looking at parking needs. We'll be looking at stormwater issues on it and public infrastructure as well. Those are typically approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. If the Planning and Zoning Commission approves a site plan on it, step 7 is the city's building permit application process where the developer will apply for a building permit. We'll have our building inspection team that looks at the project and also does inspections as the project is being constructed. The building will need to be built according to city code, state code, and also the international building codes as well. So again, it's been my experience that just to get through the city's process, this takes somewhere between 6 to 12 months just for the planning before you do something significant like draw a building permit. That's usually step 7. And usually when we talk about this, as far as the process, there's somewhere between 14 to 18 meetings and lots of public input that goes on in the process as well. So I consider this a very extensive process, but rest assured, there's a considerable amount of vetting that will be done on anything if something actually gets built on this site as well. But right now, I want to just go back, getting a lot of great comments, a lot of great concerns. Keep in mind, those comments and concerns are addressed as separate stages of the process. Right now, we're completed step 1/2. We've approved a planning document that's an urban renewal plan that doesn't obligate the city to anything. All we've stated is we may develop this area in the future, and we've eliminated goals of the plan, which is the elimination of blight through economic development. That's the goal of the plan. There's no obligation of the city to do anything. The ordinance that we have establishes a formal framework that if we get a building that actually survives, not survives, but let's say it makes it through these 7 steps, and we have a building that actually pays property taxes on the site, this ordinance would allow us to capture those future property tax revenues that we can use as either economic development incentives for any project on this site, or we could use to fund public infrastructure. But that's the city council's decision at that point in time. So this ordinance, all it is doing is setting up the necessary framework in the event that the city council wants to award economic development incentives in the future. That's as simple as what it is right now. So again, a very extensive process from the city of Pella on it. So maybe, Heidi, let's go ahead to slide 10 as well. Now, we talked a lot about light on here as well. We do have one comparable urban renewal district, and the gentleman stated a considerable number of urban renewal projects in the city of Pella, and that is true. We have had a lot of urban renewal, not a lot. We've been very successful with economic developments in the city of Pella, and that's something I think the city council takes seriously, city administration takes seriously as well. But we have one comparable development. If you recall, we said a blight assessment. Most of the urban renewal plans that we actually approve at the city council level do not have blight involved in it. We had one other one that did have blight on it, and I consider it to be a very successful development for the city of Pella. This would have been the Webster Park urban renewal plan, so it's this highlighted area that we have down here. Now, most of you, if you drive by it today, you would look at it. Things that sit there today are the Main Street Market, as well as the South Main housing development. But back in the day, if you would have turned back the clock about 10 years ago, on even less than that, let's just say 8 on it, if you had driven by there, there is the old Webster Elementary School that was on it. It's tax exempt since the day it was built. We didn't pay any property taxes on it. It's located on the main corridor. When we went to enter into a development agreement for this, the city did a very similar process. We had to consult, analyze the area for blight. What they found in this area, I believe, was roughly about, there's a high percentage, roughly 60 to 70% of this highlighted area, which is this right here, this area, was blighted. Some other things in addition to the Webster Elementary School that were blighted was there used to be a yellow house that sits on the corner right where the Main Street Market is right now. That yellow house was also had code enforcement issues for the city of Pella in addition to blight on it. So very similar goals. We had the elimination of blight for economic development. I think it was you'll see that the Main Street Market is currently located where the yellow house is. The South Main Housing Development is located where Webster School is. And also important to note that Webster School at the time was owned by Central College. Central College owned the building and then was also their maintenance facility. They sold the property to the developer, and the city worked with the developer in constructing these assets. I think it's been a feather in the community's cap. It's a true success story when you look at Blight and what urban renewal can do on it as well. So I think you hear a lot of things about urban renewal in the news. You don't hear a lot of things where there's a positive of urban renewal, and I think this is a positive case study as well. So again, it has worked in the past, and that's at least a positive way to look in the future. But urban renewal is very, very important to the city as well. So Heidi, let's go ahead, please. Again, what we're considering this evening is the adoption of the TIF ordinance. It simply establishes, allows us in the future, if the city council chooses to do so, capture incremental property taxes of buildings that don't exist today. But if we had a project that survived or went through the city's development process, which is very, very extensive, was actually built, generates property taxes, we'd be able to collect those incremental property taxes, and either use them for economic development incentives, which would be used to eliminate blight, or finance public infrastructure. So overall, it's to the benefit of the city. The ordinance allows us additional mechanisms concerning by adoption of the ordinance to effect. With that, Mr. Mayor, we are recommending approval this evening. If the city council has any questions on it, we're more than happy to answer any questions. In addition, I believe we also have on the city's legal counsel, which would be Nathan Overberg as well.
All right, as usual, Mike, that was exhaustive and very, very good. So I will entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion.
Just wait a second. I think we have to get the motion on the table before we take it.
Done it the other way around.
I know, we did it wrong last time. We need the motion to actually be on the table before we can table. So is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Carlstrom? Now there's a motion on the table. Now.
Yes, sir, thank you. I make a motion that we table this ordinance to the first meeting in November. And in that interim period, the city put together educational meetings for the city residents to better understand how TIF works and how this is going to work in conjunction with this ordinance. Giving us an opportunity to bring the city together behind this program and moving forward as a group, as a cohesive group, instead of having people not understanding or against it. And we just want to bring this together and make it more peaceful.
So there's a motion on the floor made by Butler for support. Support. Seconded by Mr. Ryland. So we will have to vote on the motion to the table first. First have a discussion. My question would be, couple questions. What do you not know? By tabling it, what do you not know now that you think you'll know then?
It's not me that doesn't know it. It's the populace, the people who don't know it. You've heard, we had 11 people talk, some for, some against, and not all of them were focused on the TIF arrangement, and there's a lot of questions around TIF in the public, from people I hear from.
So I would ask you this second question. In the last, you and I, you've been on the council for 3 years. Quite a few, pushing your third year. I've been here 7 years. In the last 5 years, how many TIF ordinances have we passed? I think about Prairie Ridge Phase 1, I think about Prairie Ridge Phase 2, I think about Timberview, I think about the Fountain Hills, what's the big one called? Fox Ridge. So that's at least 5 that this group has approved. what is different about this one than those when it comes to the TIF part of it? That makes this one, you know, I've heard we're ramrodding it through. The process has been exactly the same for every one of them. We've had the same amount of meetings. We've had the same opportunity for input from the public. I don't really think we ever had a whole lot of input from the public here.
No.
So what makes this one different than those, that we should table the third reading for 3 months?
Well, I think
I'm just
the difference-
asking questions.
Okay, that's fine. I see the difference is that it's been a lightning rod in the community because Central College is involved. Not that people are against Central College, I'm for Central College. I want Central College to survive. And I'm all for it. I can support this, but I want the people behind me, the people that have sent me emails, talked to me on the street, phoned me, I want them to understand why I would go ahead and vote yes. So I just need a little more time, which is time. We've already talked about 14 to 18 meetings, it's 2 more meetings, a year from start to finish. What's another 3 months?
Well, I think a key thing you said in your statement is it's Central College. And, you know, I think about yes, you said it.
I
You
did
said
say
it.
it,
You said it.
and I'll stay with that.
Yes.
It is Central College.
Yes,
That has
because there
brought
are
this to
certain
the surface.
people in the community that do not like Central College and want to criticize Central College. That's the thing that's different here, in my opinion. Because when I listened to the comments made, you know, last time in our meeting, I categorized our speakers in 3 different categories. There were 2 people that live next to the potential development. I totally respect everything they said, because they're living next to what is potentially new development. There were 2 people that do not even live in the city of Pella coming to give us an opinion on a project that's strictly in the city of Pella. I'm sitting there going, would I go to Knoxville City Council and talk about something going in Knoxville? So, and then the other one, the default people, if they don't want to support something, the default typically is we don't have enough information. So Mike went through this painstaking process last time of how this, kind of what he did today, and it was said at least 10 times during our conversation that there was no development. There was no development at this time. And so what's the first question we get after the discussion? Who's the developer, and can we trust them? So does that seem to you that somebody was really listening to what was said and really cared what was said? It does, to me, it doesn't.
No, but that's how things go when you deal with a group of people. I mean, you're gonna get questions that out of left field. We get questions sometimes on the council that seem that I know the answer to, somebody else has asked them, and I wonder why did they ask that question? Well, they didn't know the answer. So,
And you know, last night's meeting, I was there 2.5 hours. How much discussion was there that was not relevant at all to this project? It was Central College kind of got beat up in that meeting. So the thing of it, we as leaders in this community cannot have our decisions clouded by that. We have to do what's best for the community. This is an incredible opportunity for infill, as Mike has explained, for infill housing, which is really hard to do. You can't do it because of the land. In this situation, we have an opportunity to get 38 acres right in the middle of our community with an opportunity to redevelop. That's an unprecedented opportunity. That's an opportunity that most communities would not have. And as Mike said, this is such a preliminary step, and we're not committed. You know, I've heard people say, when do we get our money back? Well, there's no money involved. That doesn't, at this point, that doesn't happen until there's a development agreement. So I tried to think of about, as easy of example as I could. So, as I said, we've approved 5 TIF ordinances. This group, us people sitting here, 5 TIF ordinances on housing, and those were bare ground housing projects, right? And so that required new streets, new sewer, new electric, new everything. So one of the pushbacks against doing TIF is the extra cost to the city once you add those streets, right? Isn't that, and we've had that discussion. If we put in 3 miles of street, we have to plow the snow, we have to do that, we have to maintain, we have to take care of it. So that's one of the pushbacks against TIF. But we went ahead, you guys and all of us, we went ahead and approved those TIFs because we saw the benefit to the community was greater than the risk of that. Now, let's take this project. And one of the areas that I see maybe on a front burner for redevelopment, on Independence Street, there are 2 old dorms, Pete and Paul and Austin. They're, I believe, 4-story dorms, don't have an elevator, they don't use them anymore. Central's need for housing is. So here's what I could see happening there. Let's say the developer would come and say, I'd like to redevelop that footprint there. Get rid of those 2 dorms, redevelopment into apartments that would house some students and some general public. This is all hypothetical. Don't take me that this is a plan, because it's not. This is hypothetical. I thought of this in my own mind. What could possibly happen is a developer comes, says, I'll redevelop that land. City of Pella, would you get rid of the buildings? Central's gonna offer up the land and the developer would have to make some kind of lease arrangement, because Central's made it very clear they're not gonna sell the land, they're gonna lease it. And that would be up to the developer and Central. That's nothing to do with the City of Pella. But they'll come, if they came and asked the City of Pella, would you pay to have those buildings removed so that we have a flat piece of, a blank piece of land that we can redevelop? If we so chose to do that, whatever that cost was, with this ordinance in place, we could take the TIF revenue. So right now, when you pay a property tax, $10.77 per thousand of your property tax bill, the City of Pella gets. If under TIF, under current TIF, I think the TIF dollars are what, about $27 that the city can capture under a TIF. So we pay whatever that cost is.
And that's because it includes the county and school share, right?
Right, at this point, yeah, it includes, other than debt service.
Okay, so that,
Yeah.
see, those are things that they don't know.
Well,
Okay, so.
but I understand that. But in my example, so now we've spent some money on taking those buildings down, whatever, and that's not cheap. So we've spent money. What the TIF ordinance does allows us to take $27 per thousand and pay ourselves back for those, for that. But here's the, and again, remember when I said that the biggest argument against TIF is that there's extra costs. In this case, Independence Street, we're still plowing just like we are now. There's absolutely no extra cost to the City of Pella in a scenario such as that. And we get to capture the TIF revenues and pay ourselves back. And under that scenario, depending, and with the TIF, you have a minimum assessment agreement from the developer and all that, so you know exactly what your cash flow is. Mike structures if there's debt, all of that based on the cash flow. So let's say it takes 10 years. In 10 years, that new building comes onto the regular tax rolls, which benefits the county, the school, the city. And it was part of the development agreement, it was part of why the developer, we gotta remember the developers are investing a lot of money in any of these projects. And they're doing that to get a rate of return. And so, I think, to me, that's a really simple example to understand, and that's the kind of thing we're talking about here. And we have done, if we had never done a TIF, we've done it. We've had 3 readings of every ordinance when we have, this process is the same. Nobody's steamrolling or pushing anything through in a hurry. We've done it exactly the way we've always done it. And I think the proof is in the pudding on our TIF arrangements. It has been successful. We have created, or this community of developers have created housing we desperately needed as a community. And it's worked. And this one will work too.
I don't think we've ever done a TIF with leased land before.
That makes no difference to us. That's a central and the developers issue. We will capture, because TIF only is paid on the incremental value. And right now, for all of this property, there is no base taxable value. So if somebody builds a $3 million apartment building on that piece of land, we capture the property tax on $3 million of taxable value.
I just want to say, I'm not disputing the TIF. In fact, I'm in support of this TIF. I would be afraid to move forward without this TIF. But what I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman, I don't think he's disputing the TIF. I think if I'm listening to President Putnam, and everyone wants this to be an embracing project. And all that John is saying is, I want to make the public comfortable with it. I want to give them time as an educational institution. I would think that Central College would echo that same thing and say, take all the time you need. How can we get you to understand our vision and our dream and make you feel comfortable so you don't have to come here and be afraid? There was sadly a woman last night that was afraid she was going to lose her home. You know, those are the things that this time would allow the city, Central College, and the community to come together and be just like Jill was about the library when she walked through the process, looked at the site, and understood the plan. And I believe that's, John isn't challenging the TIF. I don't think anyone's challenging the TIF. I don't think anybody is saying, you know what, they're gonna just write this huge check to Central College. We're just asking to educate. And as I heard President Putnam last night, they were trying to educate last night. And I heard confusion. Again, I had confusion knocking on my door all day long. I had confused phone calls last night from when I got home. So why wouldn't we give a little more time? If we have until December 3rd for this. It's a teachable moment for all of us. It's a teachable moment for me. I don't think it's a huge ask. I think it's something we can give the citizens. Check this out. It's something we can give the citizens for free. That doesn't happen a lot. The process of government moves slowly, and that is intentional. So that kids that's why we have 3 readings. Why do we have 3 readings? Let me tell you why we have 3 readings. We have 3 readings because if things like this come up, we have time to say, you know what? You're right. We're going to slow it down. We're going to help you to understand so that we can all come together as a community. And boy, oh boy, do we need to do that are more than ever. So if I misrepresented your request, correct me.
And I think, yes, it's education. We want to get the community to run in the same direction. And I know we didn't hear any of this stuff from the other TIF arrangements. There are very few people objected to them. But there's just a lot of confusion in this one. And, we're not trying to hurt it, we're trying to help it. That's what I see.
So one of the things that I think we're talking about two different things, explaining the TIF was what you just mentioned, right? Which I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people think a TIF is a fight. But also what a lot of people were asking for was that final plan. We're not gonna have that when we vote on this. And I guess, I think that has to be clear with all of us voting here, that no matter how much people clamor for that final plan, rightfully so, Central isn't even gonna ask for requests or proposals until they know this is here. Don't you think?
Well, I think they could go ahead and start getting proposals, because I think once we get through the process of educating, providing education for a couple of meetings, that people will say, okay, I understand now how it works, and I'm comfortable with it. That's what we're looking for, is to get more people comfortable with what or how this actually works.
And I just don't think any developers even gonna mess with the proposal until the urban renewal plan has been approved.
Well, Central's not gonna see any development until this, well, no.
That's what I think.
But it's been approved, Calvin. That's already been approved. The urban renewal plan has already been approved, the urban light.
But not the TIF ordinance.
Right,
Yeah,
but that's
what
where the
it-
confusion is coming in, is that people think we're approving an urban renewal plan tonight. We are not. It was approved on July the 7th. Those are all the miscommunications, the misconceptions that I believe need to be eliminated. So everybody in here, we already approved that July the 7th. That's not what this is about.
But that urban renewal plan carries no teeth.
I totally agree. I
So-
totally agree.
Until this ordinance is in place, it does not give the city any flexibility for redevelopment in this case.
Right.
And, Central could just go ahead and redevelop this by themselves if they want to. I don't think they will, because I think that, they're thinking of it as a partnership between the community and to attract quality development. But
It's a
it's
lovely
gonna take
idea.
that.
It's a lovely idea. I just think in order to make it highly successful, which I want it to be, it is going to take a little more education on our part, from us and from an educational institution. That's how I see it.
understand it, they'll be for it. Just have to clear up misconceptions, misunderstanding, miscommunication. I mean, it's, I would think Central could start to put out feelers.
Hey, John, can you guys hear me?
Lease ground. And
Dave wants
say,
to speak.
hey, we
Hang on just a second, Dave.
And we think, and we believe that we will have TIF available for them
Okay.
to help out. So, you know, it's, those guys aren't gonna drop everything they're doing today and start designing, circles. They're gonna come over, look at the project, walk around, go back home and work on it for a month. And we're just looking for a couple, 3 months to get around this corner.
I do think the leasing, you know, all of the lease housing, I think concerns some people. I think
Dave,
that
yes.
number, the 1,300 or whatever, I think concerns some people.
Dave, you can go ahead.
Yep. Okay.
We can hear you.
So I'm sorry that I couldn't make it tonight. I want to talk about a couple things. And the most important piece is sometimes what leaders have to do, and actually most times, what leaders have to do is leaders have to make decisions that are in the best interest of people, even when some people may not understand. It's what I do as a parent. It's what I do as a business owner. I make decisions based on what I believe is the best interest of the most people involved, even when some people may not understand. And sometimes those decisions that aren't understood, they're only understood in the future. So, and they're only understood by people who want to understand. Second thing, what we're looking at voting on tonight is akin to somebody who would call me and say, hey, Dave, I've got a business idea, I've got an idea, a concept, whatever, that I'd like to come over to your house and talk about sometime in the future. Would you be open to that, and would you be willing to that? Would you be willing to unlock your front door? And if I'm a friend, then I say absolutely. Just like the City of Pella is a friend to Central College and vice versa. And if a friend said, hey, I've got what I think is a good idea, sometime in the future, would you be willing to have a conversation that we could bring to the table? If I said no, they'd be like, okay, they're never going to come. If I said, yep, I'm open to that, to come and knock and ask me for a conversation, and let's see if this is a good opportunity in the future. But what we're doing right now, a no vote is saying, no, we don't want that conversation in the future. If indeed the idea is that we want to move this so that it's in place before changes happen at the end of the year. Those are my two things. I don't want to say no to an idea that we're not spending money. We're not doing anything. All we're doing is unlocking the opportunity for something to happen down the road. And we're doing that because we're leaders, and leaders move forward for the best of the most people, even when some people don't understand.
But we're not talking about not moving forward. We're talking about moving forward on a different path. That's all. What's the word I'm supposed to say? I'll call the question?
I'll decide first. Whatever that is, a chance. So we'll have to vote on the motion to table first. Depending on the outcome of that vote, then we'll vote on the other motion.
I'm sitting here trying to understand which way I believe. Would any amount of time forward provide enough time for everybody to really change their mind on this. John was optimistic that we could get kind of everybody swimming in the same direction. I'll, Nemo, everybody swim down, swim down. And I just don't know which, I love humans, I study humans, I love watching people try to change their behaviors. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it takes years, decades, even when things are harmful to them physically. I'm just trying to decide, do I think any additional time is really ultimately going to change mindset or an attitude on a specific issue? Sitting here for 5 years, I think it's been, people seem to have the same approach at the beginning of an issue that they do at the end of an issue. And so that means me one way, and then I think John's logic is good. I'd love for people to understand these things that I didn't know anything about it until you had to sit in the seat. And there's a lot of people that aren't engaged in it, and now they're getting engaged in it. So there's a whole lot of catch-up we've been talking about for, I don't know, it's been going on in this town for 10 years. Well, the ones that have been the hottest topics. And so this catch-up curve, do we wait for this catch-up curve? I'm just on the fence on whether or not any amount of time, whether it's 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, is going to really get us all swimming in the same direction. When I run for election or re-election, it seems to me that I hear half over here for this thing and half over here for this thing. And they both have valid concerns, and they are convicted that they hold their position for noble reasons. And I'm not convinced that my job in the seat, or any of our jobs in the seat, is to convince somebody to come from this camp to this camp, or vice versa, from this camp to this camp. So that's where I'm kind of processing, and I think the concerns here of wanting to get everybody is noble. It's a great idea. I'm just not sure it's very pragmatic or realistic or attainable at whatever time frame we set. There are 15 other times in this journey moving forward that people can educate themselves and be vocal about and be proactive in stopping this if they don't like it. And that's their right. It's a beautiful part of democracy. This one vote tonight, if it gets there, I'm not sure that's it. You know, like that doesn't necessarily make or break it. So that's where I'm sitting, processing what everyone's saying. I think they're all valid concerns. I'm not sure tabling does it. It just makes it 3 more months of hearing these same opinions on both sides. So if you guys have something to help me with that, I'd appreciate it. But that's where I'm mulling on.
I think the main goal of an elected official is to listen, and to listen to what people are saying. That's over here. Our opinion went by the wayside the day we stood up and held our hand up and we promised to represent them. What I'm seeing is a disconnect in understanding. And as a leader, I believe that
Yeah, so people have an opportunity to learn more and to ask more questions, and then hopefully we can, bring more people to an understanding of what TIF is useful for. People don't know. There's people that, they just don't know, but we won't get all of them, but we can get more of them, and by acting in good faith to attempt to teach people, I think would be a really good thing for us to do.
So this would be on college too, is there gonna be a quiz then at the end? Well, by that time, I don't know what it is.
Multiple choice.
Is TIF true or false?
Probably the voting poll would vote for you.
There are, the December 31st date, you guys, that takes the school portion out. Right. Which is substantial dollars. If we were to, let everybody study up on TIF for the quiz in November, what was the date?
November 1st, for the first meeting.
Does passing that ordinance at that time still allow for making that school portion available? How does that affect our timeline?
I'd be happy to answer that question if you can't connect, but that's probably something Nathan should answer. Andy?
Nathan, are you able to hear?
It's really about 50% of what I could hear, so, but I can hear you very clearly. Andy, can you repeat the question and can you hear me on answer?
Yes.
You have to repeat the question.
Oh, I thought I said it back. If we were to table this to November 1st, with December 31st being the end of the current TIF as we know it, would November 1st vote to approve still give time for us to be able to capture the TIF as the law currently stands? Or is that too late to do so?
You need time to have the third reading and then publish. I would think November 1 would give you time to do that. So if whatever meeting occurs after November 1, then get the third reading approval, you need time to get it published in your paper, and send to the county auditor for the end of December.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I heard that was affirmative.
Okay. All right, anybody, any other comments? You still on there, Dave?
I am, yeah.
All right.
Yes, I am.
All right, so.
I'm still here too.
So the motion, the first motion we need to vote on is the motion to table it until the first meeting in November, which I assume whatever date that would be, there will still need to be a motion during that meeting to take it off the table. We can't just put it on the agenda, I would assume, right?
Correct.
I think we would have to have a motion to bring it off the table.
Correct. Yep.
We're tabling it.
If the motion is to table, then there needs to be a motion to remove it from the table. If your motion is to delay it to a certain date, then that is the action. We will consider it on whatever date. So there's a little bit of a difference between tabling and delaying.
Okay.
And can we vote on it the day we untable?
Yes.
Yeah, if you can. Especially if
Yes.
it's the delay, the delay mechanism, I think, is easier than the table and untabling, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Because if you're tabling it,
So maybe we could convince maybe John to retract his.
We can change that to delay, that's fine, so we don't get smart looking
Who supported?
And I'll support.
No, who supported his first motion? You did, okay. So you're okay supporting, if he's changing his motion to delay instead of table, you're okay with that? Okay.
And then the other question I would ask John, what expectations are on the training program?
Well, those are details we'll have to work out, but I think we can have training for education or town meeting, town hall meeting, on a convenient day, in a convenient place. We'll have to figure that out.
So that would be, if we have a similar meeting to, last night,
Yeah.
type of thing, is that what you would do?
Yeah.
Maybe you're led by Mike instead,
Yeah.
on the TIF stuff. Mike, are you agreeable?
If that's the council would like to do, then I'd be supportive of it.
So we'll set those days
Yes.
and advertise them, let you know.
I have a Mandy question before we proceed. Doesn't to place it back on the agenda, it has to be placed by the presiding party, correct? In other words, it has to be placed by John or Carol.
If,
Is that correct?
if the motion is to delay consideration to a specific date, which would be November 3, that will be what happens. Nothing else will need to happen. It will just be on that agenda.
Okay, he doesn't need to make a formal, okay.
Correct,
Thank you.
yes. Tabling brings that piece of it in, but yes, delaying just automatically puts it on that agenda.
Super important, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, so the motion on the table that we are going to now vote on is to delay the third reading and consideration of the third reading of ordinance number 1090 until November 3rd, 2026. Mandy, if you support that, motion, say yes. If you oppose that motion, say no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Butler,
Yes.
Van Strylen,
Yes.
Banstra,
Yes.
Branderhorst,
Yes.
Carlstone,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion. Do I have a motion? I have a motion for approval of abstract bills 2204.
To approve and issue warrants.
Support.
Brandon Morris, Mr. Island. Any questions or discussion?
And one question, I looked at replacing a police headlight for $1,365. I wish I could replace headlights for that. I'd replace quite a few. Any answer on that one?
We had a deer strike, and so we would want a different replacement.
You had a what?
We had a deer strike, so.
Oh, so that was more than just one little bulb.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Those bulbs are all right, so, all in favor of paying our bills, please say yes.
Branderhorst,
Yes.
Van Strylen,
Yes.
Banstra,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Carlstone,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passed. Any council member have any other thing you want to bring up this evening? Any member of the public have any other business you'd like to address the council with this evening? If so, please come forward to that microphone, state your name and address, and make your comments. 3 minutes.
How you doing, Jen Brand, 1213 Bruce Lane. I do understand that I have on a Huskers sweatshirt. I apologize, it's Central. As I was walking in, I'm like, this is not the night to do this. So thank you for voting to delay this versus a no vote and just allowing me extra time. President Putnam said last night that they've been at this for several years. I don't think 3 more months of attempting to go to community unity is a problem, and it's probably going to be worth every moment that 3 months gives us. Mr. Mayor, I was disappointed to hear that you suggested those who don't live in the immediate area don't like Central. Many citizens are simply raising thoughtful or confused questions because they care about transparency, financial responsibility, and long-term future of our community. None of my kids attended Central. That doesn't mean I dislike the school. Simply it wasn't what they wanted to do was not offered there. I hope that believe the TIP examples referenced tonight involve development where the occupants own both the building and the land. Could be wrong, but that's how we've generally done them in the past, I believe, Mike. This proposal appears to be different because of the long-term lease structure. During last night's discussion, panel members spoke in detail about the amount of control Central would retain throughout that lease. I believe the public deserves a fair explanation of how this arrangement protects the taxpayers if a developer fails and walks away. I think that could be one thing that we do in our school. Understanding, and I think, was it you last night that kind of talked about that? Yep, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. I think that'd be super helpful for the public to understand. We've had situations before where projects don't go as planned. Boston Golf Course is one example that has left taxpayers with ongoing concerns. Vintage Cooperative is another example of a development where the builder went bankrupt, leaving residents to navigate significant challenges despite believing they had secure ownership. How is this proposal structured to prevent our community from facing a similar situation on an even larger scale? A long-term ground lease is a new concept for our school town. Let's just help the citizens understand the financial risk and what protections are in place with that. A transformative project, this is a transformative project for our town. Taking the additional 3 months to fully understand the details is not unreasonable. Decisions of this size deserve careful consideration. Finally, I was concerned to learn that a meeting took place involving the members of Central's board, representatives of Pella Corporation and Premier families without the rest of the city council present. Whether that meeting was appropriate or not, it does raise concerns about transparency. I hope future discussions on a project of this significance will be conducted in a way that gives both the council and the public confidence that the process is open and exclusive. Thank you.
John Vanstra, rural Mahaska County. Based on comments tonight, I probably shouldn't care about Pella, but I do. I consider Pella to be part of the greater community. And as such, June meeting of the Pella Airport Committee, they discussed bringing to council their plans, long-range plans, even bringing in HDR engineer Jerry Searle to discuss that. That's been 3 meetings ago. There has been no discussion. There's a lot of passion about Central College. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be passion in Central College, but if our airport is to support our businesses, where's the passion to support that and discuss that? Whether it passes or not, you can't move forward without discussion. Thank you.
Kathy Dow, 625 Highway T14, still 1,000 feet outside of the northern part of the city limits. I have family that works inside the city limits. My water and electric bill comes from the City of Pella. So I was saddened to hear that you think that my voice doesn't count. And I echo that I hope that ceases in the future. I hope my voice counts more next week when we close on our house within the city limits. To clear up some of the comments that were made during the discussion tonight, I have not heard a single person who wanted to slow this down a little bit and have more time say anything bad about Central. We all like that Central is here. We all want Central to stay. We all want Central to succeed. We don't necessarily want to be ramrodded into something where our taxpayer money could be used down the line. We want more transparency. So, yeah, I'm glad that you postponed this a little bit to give us some more time. There are lots of things that we would like more education on. And I would say that we all love the city. We want it to grow and do well. But it is not helpful to exclude people because they don't live within your little bounds. Even though we all support the city, we shop local, we
there are no people, no other homes, just for clarification.
Thank you.
The map
Because
is
that-
strictly central.
Okay, because there was definitely
There's
miscommunication
a
about
neighbor,
that.
there was a neighbor, yes.
Yes.
Anna Rupert, 1104 Peace Street. I want to dispute that, and there is still one more property on that list that is not owned by Central, according to the Beacon. Yeah, thank you. Blanking on what it was called. It's a rental house. It was included on the blight assessment. I think it's owned by a company called Van Schulte LLC, something like that. Anyway, I just wanted to also express my gratitude for delaying this tonight. As somebody who lives directly across from the Rose Center, I can share that the first time I had heard about this was at the May City Council meeting. My husband sat through the presentation because we wanted to hear from Central first pitching this before we made any comments. And I have spent the last several months digging into all of that and trying to find out more information. Last night was the first time I got a lot of actual responses from Central, which was helpful. And I ran into a neighbor just a few hours ago. He's been gone for a bit, and he knew nothing about this. None of my residents were around me were contacted. We are still kind of trying to understand what all this entails, and I don't think we object to the urban renewal that has been passed already. We all agree the Orange Blob needs work. I think what we are concerned about is the use of TIF money to fix that work. So, yeah, I guess I would like to see from Central more the assessment that they need more housing, student housing. I would like to see some sort of workplace housing study that says workplace housing is needed. I think those would help the public as we justify this TIF ordinance. Thank you.
As I said, Ron Rosenberg, my Kenny's first time back again. The transparency, as John's saying, is something that the City of Pella's government has a problem with. I'm going to go all the way back to the airport. There was a big discussion, and then all of a sudden that airport got stuffed off to the side for several months. And then all of a sudden, poof, up blows up this 28E. And people going, what is a 28E? Oh, that was the hatchet that cut everybody off. Got slid that 28E in. Oh, I'm sure it was publicized in the back of the 3 pages about this big that it was going to be what was going on with it. Your comment about the other 5 TIF programs that you had, maybe you didn't get any feedback on it because you didn't, the transparency. I've been here all my life, 64 years. And there's a lot of people that ain't been in here that long. And the transparency of the City of Pella's government is pretty low. I believe John had a town hall meeting, was awesome. I learned more from that town hall meeting than never shake a stick at. One of the things I did learn, that we have less than 30% voter registration participants, Steve. Less than 30% voted for your mayor and your councilman out of the entire town. 30%. That's 70% that didn't vote. Now you take out Central College that are allowed to vote in the city elections, and how many is that? So I appreciate it, John, and all the councilmen for putting this on the back burner, and let's wash the windows so everybody can see what's going on on this project. Thanks.
Hi, Steve Woodhouse, owner and publisher of the Marion County Express, the official newspaper for the city of Pella. There's been a lot of talk about transparency tonight, and you're wrong. I mean, most of the information, the answers to the questions that were raised last night, I have shared multiple times in my publication, which is available in numerous places around town. I'm not trying to get a free plug here on the YouTube, but I do my best to be transparent and follow everything and stay on top of things. It's also up to the public to be willing to receive that information. And I think sometimes there's a lack of that. And I don't think that the council deserves the North Central College or President Putnam. I don't think they deserve the level of criticism that they've been getting last night and tonight. I think you guys do your best to be transparent, but there's a lot going on in the city. That's part of my challenge. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Steve, I'm gonna tell you that you do a great job on that paper. I see so many bylines that have your name on it. I can't believe how you can do that.
That's not easy.
It's not easy, I'm sure it's not. But I would encourage, if you're not subscribed, I'll put the ad out for you. If you're not subscribing to it, it's what, $60 a year? 65? 65 a year. Get it once a week, a lot of paper, and you have an online paper now as well.
Yes. They get 65 plus website.
Yeah. So it's worth the money, and we need to keep Steve in business. It's a big deal.
Put it in for plugs, it's $52 a year to stop at Light or at Bank Iowa and buy it.
Yeah, but the gas will get there. But thanks.
Appreciate your work.
Thanks.
Wonder if you ever get to be home.
Oh, sometimes.
All right, seeing no one else, we'll move to our policy and planning. Our first item is to discuss the Southside Beautification Project.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. And what we have tonight is receiving direction from the City Council, specifically as it applies to this project that's been formally called the Southside Beautification Project. The Council's also officially approved the name of Charles Sparkle Park for this project as well. What we're here to talk tonight about is seeking bids for the project on it, and so we're going to be going over the preliminary design concept for the site. But we're also going to be talking about the finances as well, but ultimately in the conversation, we're going to move forward direction on whether we should seek bids or not. Now, as far as the site that we're concerned about this evening, we have a map of the site, but it's a almost 3 acre site that is located on the former power plant site of the City of Pella. So this is the area that we have. If you're looking here, Hospital Street is located right here. Pella Corporation's corporate headquarters is located right here, their facilities. And so what is being proposed, if you're to drive by the site today, you'll notice just basically a green field. And I often get asked by newcomers that are in town, what the city are going to do with that? That site's very significant for the city because for years that was the location of our power plant on it as well. So what we're proposing to do is redevelopment plans for that site on it. This has been a project the City Council has talked about for a while. And sometimes projects take a long time to bring to the table because there's various aspects with it. But if you'll notice on that site, if you were to drive by it, one of the items that we have on that site is a 69,000 volt transmission line that runs across that site. We're in the process of burying those lines. We have plans to bury it. Unfortunately, this time of year, our electric director tells me he can't get approval to take that line out of service, so we can place it underground until it gets to the fall when there's not as much demand on the electrical system. That's understandable. So we are planning on moving the site, placing those transmission lines underground. But once we do that, with this, what's being proposed is a beautification project on the site. And what we have here is walking trails. There's a number of plantings that are included on the site as well. And then we also have preliminary plans for a pavilion on the site. And a little bit of background on this for the council members. I know Councilmember Rand Stryland was a part of the site in the Phil Power Plant site. But in case you may not be aware, when we talk about redevelopment, this is basically a brownfield site. If you look at the city's power plant on that, when we removed that back in 2014, we removed the building structure, and a lot of the foundation is still sitting on that site. And so what this project has, where it's here to dig around about 6 feet in it, you still find the power plant foundations on this site. But ultimately what we're soil and have plantings on there and also walking trails on it as well. And we also have an area that we have dual access for that'll be new for the site. So we'll have access from Oskaloosa Street and Park Street. And then we also have an area that we can have for congregation and also a food truck area as well. So again, looking at this project, I've listed as very comparable. If you wanted to kind of put a park to it, I've listed as comparable to maybe something Gardens Park that we have. That's the level of park that we're talking about. And it has huge significance for the city. It really helps transforming project, because I can remember when we operated the power plant for a number of years. We made the transition over to Missouri River. Now we have a brownfield site, so this is bringing it full circle. Now, as we discuss plans for this site, before we turn it over for additional comment, I'd like to mention to the council that when we talk about potential uses in the future, you may recall that I see the foundations of the power plant are still there on the site. What that really means is that we're very limited on what we could actually use the site for. And there's two uses that we have been in conversations with the DNR that we can use the site on. One of them is a parking lot. Second is a beautification landscaping project, which is what we're proposing for the community. And so again, when you look at reuse, we're very limited on the site here with it, but that's just a broad-based overview. Before we get into finances, Council Member Brenda Horst is our chairperson on the committee. Is there any additional comments that you'd like to add about this project or benefits that we are looking at, elements that we're looking to redevelop on the site?
Well, I will say, when I say government moves slowly, here's an 8-year example of government moving slowly. But it was by design, because we had 3 years of environmental study on that. And that was very important to those of us on the committee to make sure that everything was secure, everything was safe. It also was the desire, we went through, I think, 3 or 4, how many renderings did we go through, Jay?
3.
Yeah, at least 3. We wanted to create something that was lower maintenance for the city, and we wanted to create something that was unique. Like I say, Jade and I have been on the committee for almost 8 years on this, and I'm thrilled. I think that this is going to be a very unique park. It's going to be a 12-month year park. It's going to be a park that really benefits the workers at Pella. They can go out and walk the trails or buy something at a food truck. Food truck area helps with entrepreneurial endeavors within our community. And it also, and I'm going to segue to Jay, it also honors a family that continues to be so vital in our community. And Jay, could you just address the Barker family?
Yep. So I just want to thank you for your consideration tonight and time for this. Charlie Barker is very honored to be part of this design and what the thoughtfulness behind this park. Like you said, the Barker family, Tiger family, Griffith family, all the shareholders really care about the Pella community and the Pella Group team members. And this park benefits everybody. And that's really what Charlie is thinking of when he's trying to think of the name of this park as well. And so they're excited to keep this moving forward and get to a plan that everybody's excited about from the committee standpoint and what it can mean for the community of Pella. And so they're just honored, and I want to say thank you as well for your consideration of moving this forward here real soon, hopefully. So thank you.
And I think we probably need to mention, and forgive me for not doing this earlier, Charlie was directly involved.
Yeah, we had Charlie's architect friend was directly involved. I've been involved. We also had our maintenance guy, Dwayne Rempe, involved on the committee. And so Charlie was definitely well represented with what his desires were and what his thoughts and feelings were about this park as well throughout the whole process.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
One of the alternates was bathrooms. Where is the location of those, or is this still coming up in the presentation?
I'll make sure every council member gets right that we address that question. So, we'll talk about that back very soon. So, let's go ahead, please. Okay. Now, as far as the total cost of the project, I may be a little bit off on it, but when we had the initial estimates on this, it's right at $1,522,000 is what our architect was Now, as far as the restrooms, what we're proposing is to approach this bid very similarly to what we did with the indoor recreation center as well as the community center. We have a restroom facility on the site that's just over $380,000 estimated cost. We're proposing to list that as an alternate. And that means that we'll get construction bids on that project, but the restroom will only be built if there's funding available to build it on as well. So we'll make that determination once you get bids on the site. So again, estimated cost of $1,522,000 on the site. I'm gonna let the other team members answer the question as where that's, the restroom facility would be located here very soon. But let's cover the revenue side and then I'll be quiet for a while. But as far as the revenue funding source on it, we're looking at this project. We have total committed funding sources of $1,450,000. From the city side of things, we're still determining if we have the ability to pay for this with cash on hand or if we're gonna have to issue a bond for it. That's about $900,000. The electric utility is contributing $350,000 to this project, and that is the cost to bury the electric transmission lines on site on it as well. So when you look at the city's total contribution, it'd be $1,250,000. And then we also have an estimated $200,000 in private donations. Now, one of the things we are planning on doing is we are planning on applying for a grant through the state of Iowa for this project as well. So there may be additional funding sources on this, and we'll apply for other grants as well. But when you look at the total donor sources compared to the base budget, we're right at 95% of the total funding sources, and we're within the range of contingency on the expenditures. And that's the threshold that we use on seeking bids for both the indoor recreation center as well as the community center as well. And so with that, let's go ahead, please, Heidi, and check. Yeah, let me cover the timeline, and we'll answer the question on where those restroom facilities are located on it. Couple housekeeping notes on it, and this site is currently zoned M2 on it. I just want to make sure council's aware of this. I consider this purely a housekeeping item. If you recall, we said basically we have two options what we can use this site for. We can either level everything and put a parking lot on it, or we can do a landscaping project. And with the landscaping project, we're hoping it not only beautifies the community, but I'm also hoping on the southern side, we talked about this as council, I think the council is hoping that a project like this can encourage additional redevelopment on the Oskaloosa Street corridor. It's happened in other communities when we do these types of projects, so hopefully we'll see some benefit with it as well. But when we look at this site, currently it's zoned M2 because it was a power plant. Park and rec facilities are allowed in every single zoning district except one, and that's M2 heavy industrial. So if we move forward, we have to rezone the property, and we're proposing just to rezone it as CC, that'd be consistent with the Oskaloosa Street corridor. And we also could view that'd be a conditional rezoning where we would have it just as a park and rec facility. It's the only allowable use on it. So I view that as just a housekeeping item that hopefully we can take care of this fall if we decide to seek bids. But as far as the timeline on the project, what we're looking to do is place those electrical lines underground by the end of October. If we can keep that on track and get this project rezoning taken care of before the end of the year, we're hoping to be able to go out to bids either late this year or early in January 2027. We'd be looking at sometime mid-February or early March for a construction bid accepted by the City Council. If the City Council approves a construction bid on this, we believe the lion's share of this project would be built by calendar year 27. However, we need to get an account for growing grass and planting and things like that. So the reality is we'd be opening this project up sometime in the spring of 2028 to the general public as well. So with that, before we seek direction, Heidi, if you go back to the map, what I would ask is either council member Brandon Forrest or if Spencer could help me out on the locations of those restrooms.
Jay, correct me if I'm wrong on this, okay? You might be able, you're better.
I'll be the pointer.
Thank you. That's exactly, yes, that's exactly what it is. And I believe that, where Chief had asked that you potentially put some sort of time lock system on them, am I remembering? It's been 8 years, so.
Boy, it has been a minute since we talked about that. I'm starting to shake off some cobwebs. I think the technology is there, not that I'm running around all the time, but, you know, we have to lock a bunch of different facilities. If that technology is there, we just want to get it done.
Thank you.
Yeah, it would be a nice addition, but
remiss if I didn't say, just so we're all on the same page, if you look at the plantings, I think this is gonna be a very nice park out here, but one of the items that we're currently doing is we're currently working on staffing plans for our community services department. Not this year, but FY '28, which starts on July 1st, 2027, we're gonna be opening up some facilities in the city that I think are gonna improve the quality of life. First of it, hopefully will be soon, early in the year, be able, hopefully take care of the community center renovation project expansion. We're hoping to offer the community additional programs with that as well. And we're also going to be opening up an indoor recreation center. So what we're working on right now is our staffing plans. We've had tentative plans for a long time, but we're finalizing all of those items. Taking on the park, I think it's great community amenity, but it will be additional planning. It's going to take some additional manpower. We're working this in with our concept plans on the other things to make it, it'll all work at the end of the day. But if you were to ask me how many additional people we have on this, we're in the process of working through this. What I would say, council made a decision to seek bids on it before we approved the construction bid. We'll have an answer for that. We also intend to have additional preliminary information on both the rec center and community center, just so there's no miscommunication with the public. Rule of thumb with both those facilities, we're going to work within the additional budgetary allocation for the City of Pella on both of those projects. We intend to do that with this project as well. I just can't itemize it right now on it, but that's our intention. So.
Yeah, Chandler told me that there are 254 flower beds in town.
That is correct.
He takes care of it, they take care of it. And they look great.
Our staff does a great job. The community services staff does. I mean, the city staff overall does a great job offering services to the community. But when we talk about bringing capital projects on, you got to talk about the operating too. We'll have those discussions. I just want to make sure council's aware of that. So with that, Mr. Mayor, we're looking on a direction this evening specifically whether we should see construction bids on this project.
All right. Anybody opposed to moving forward on this?
I just had a question, that $350,000 from the electric utility, was that in kind work, or was that the value of work, or was that an actual cash contribution?
That's gonna be probably the actual cash contribution for the transmission lines to place underground. Our staff's doing a lot of the work with this material cost.
Yeah.
So, and then also we likely might have to have a firm coming to take down those poles too.
Is it possible to take that other 900, which you said would either be a geo bond or cash, could that come out of the electric utility too? Maybe, because if it was, I know there's restrictions on that, but I look at that truly is an electric plant that is part of that for the finalization of getting that in shape. That may be a nice source of funding for that.
Certainly logical, Councilmember, what you're proposing. I think the easy answer to that is, we don't like to issue debt a lot in the City of Pella, so we're looking for every means that we can to be able to do that. And we'll take a look at our fund balances as well as we maintain cash on hand in the city fund. We'll do that. That will also be a part of the financing plan before we approve the construction project. We're just not quite ready to say that we can pay cash for it yet.
Okay, anything else? All right, let's move on to library space utilization study results.
Okay. I'd like to actually turn this portion of the program over to our library director. So, Tina.
Thank you, Council. We really appreciate you taking a little extra time tonight to listen to this study. I'm Tina Hurdle. I'm the current library director, and we have with us Corey Sharp, and Denny Sharp is also here from FEH Design, and I will introduce them a little bit more after this. So I'm here to tell you the why. I have just a very small part. I want to turn it over to Corey to give you the exciting details. But how did we go about doing this? We are, it doesn't say it on our current title, but if you visit City Hall at all, you probably know that the original library is a Carnegie Library. So we are still considered a descendant of the Carnegie Foundation. So this year, in honor of America's 250th anniversary, they have awarded any Carnegie Library or descendant a $10,000 gift to use in any way possible. So we took that to the board, and they also gave us $10,000 in 1905 to start the construction of what is now City Hall. So we took that to the library board and said, we have a wonderful library. It's getting very well used. We need to start thinking about how some things need to be done differently, because overall the building hasn't been touched significantly in its 26-year existence now. So we took that to the library board, and the library board said you may use that gift to do a space utilization study. We had great ideas, but we needed the professionals to come in and say, yes, these are ideas that will work for your community. This is also in line with the city's long-term planning. So in 2019, I think it is that correct? The city did do a facilities assessment, and within that assessment, they determined that the library would need about $5,000 additional space to maintain the level of services that it was offering through 2040. They estimated the cost of that would be probably different projects, so there was a large range between $350,000 and $5.5 million. So we took that information in mind, and next slide, please. This is data that's fresh off of the fiscal year. So our library is heavily used. In the 2026 fiscal year that just ended, we had over almost 119,000 visitors come to the library. Circulation has always been strong in this community. It's just kind of changed a little bit. This is only physical circulation. It does not include electronic circulation. But we have seen almost 168 items circulated in the library this past year. Where we're seeing huge differences is how people are using the library. So this year we offered 720 library programs. That's in contrast to the 341 programs we offered in 2019 when the original assessment was done. Our program attendance increased from a little over almost 15,000 last year to 20,617 this year. And that's children's programming, teen programming, and adult programming. Our Wi-Fi connections are about 32,000, so we thank Pella Fiber for that and all the people who come into the library. Our computer use is one of the areas we've seen go down, but our study room usage is going up, which tells us that people are bringing their own devices to work in the library. So they're using the study rooms. We proctored 57 exams last year for students that are attending digital courses across the nation. So we've seen a significant jump in that. Study room use went from 12,000 last year to 1,800 this year. And our collection size has obviously grown too. As our readership grows, so does our collection. So these were all things that we took into consideration to why we needed to do this study. And then this is where Corey and his team comes in. He came in and really talked to us, walked around the building, watched how people were using the building, and has come back with some really great recommendations. So I would like to turn it over to Corey now so he can share those recommendations with you.
Thank you. Just a minute to introduce myself. My name is Corey Sharp. I'm an architect with FEH Design. We're located at 604 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. We're very fortunate to work here in the City of Pella with their library. Our firm has been very fortunate to work with many, many libraries across the state. I'm not sure Denny and the crowd over there could even count the number of libraries that he's worked on in his career. So very fortunate to be here in Pella and try and do our best to share a little bit of our experience with you all. I'm just going to run through the different things we're going to talk about here briefly. I'll be as brief as I can. I know that tonight's meeting has been lengthy. I'm going to share kind of the overall floor plan that we looked at, the existing floor plan, the different things that we looked at in terms of existing space utilization, how the library is currently utilizing their space. We did look at potential ideas for building expansion, both within the library and outside the library, and then talk to you about what our final recommendations are and the sort of estimated budgets that go with those recommendations. So I'll try and orient you here. This is a floor plan that was taken from the original plans. You'll see some dates within this presentation that refer to the library being 28 years old. I know Tina talked about 26. We talk about 28 because that's the date that's on the building plans within the plans we have. So to orient you in this plan, down here in the lower right-hand corner is where the main entry is when you enter the main entry lobby. Beyond that, you have your program room off here to the right, sort of the remainder of the library way off to the left. Eventually, we will get into talking about the lower level of the library. That particular portion is kind of awkwardly spaced up in the upper right-hand corner of this plan. You'll see a number of different icons here. These are all the different kind of individual spaces that we studied, as well as kind of an overall theme of studying the overall library. And we're going to go into kind of each one of these little spaces individually. So the circles represent different snippets we're going to talk about in this presentation. We'll start in the main entry lobby. So one of the things we found in the main entry is that there's some existing display areas that we feel like could be upgraded to allow for better displayed materials and books, used book sales that happen, different events that might be happening, bulletins that might be happening, just a slightly better way to enhance that experience. We also looked at the possibility of making the Friends book sale area, if you were to do some of the new display areas, that you could reuse that Friends book sale area and create a new family restroom in this area. The meeting room inside that lobby doesn't have a designated family restroom. There's a men's, there's a women's, and that's sort of all you get. There is space to allow for a new family restroom in this space if you were interested in providing one. Just beyond the kind of entry zone area, coming into the library, this is the spot where you really orient yourself. You kind of have one chance to make a really good first impression, and we felt like this area could really use some upgraded furnishings in this area to highlight new books, new arrivals, used books, events and programmings that might be happening, and just trying to have a little bit more kind of exciting furnishings that draw the eye and capture the attention of any returning or new visitors to the library. One of the general overall things that we discovered when we were kind of walking throughout the library is that the lighting levels are really low throughout the library. There's a lot of general overhead lighting, and then there's some really specific lighting that was designed into the shelving units to allow people to see down the sides of the shelves. But even on a really, really bright sunny day, it feels a little dark in the library, which is not great if you want to sit at a desk and read a book, or if you want to have study materials, or enjoy programming, or even just enjoy the aesthetic of the library, which is beautiful. So we would really highly recommend trying to upgrade the lighting system throughout the library so you can enjoy reading more, you can enjoy programming more. Eventually we'll talk about kind of upgrading the finishes of the library. We think that if you were to upgrade the finishes, you want lighting to go with that so you could really appreciate all the new upgrades that the facility might have. A lot of the finishes throughout the library haven't been updated since it was built. So I think there's some room for improvement there. Study areas. We've got a couple things we want to touch on study areas. This first one is really kind of, Tina touched on, people bring their devices to the library. Currently, we've kind of got open tables, and then we've got these little study carrels, which are functional, but in today's libraries, there's more options for flexibility for utilizing study areas. Things that are more comfortable, more flexible, better acoustic separation. So we've shown a few different options here that could be integrated into this library. Maybe it feels more personal. So there's different ways that people really appreciate being able to study these days, and these are just a few options of things that we would recommend. Or if you wanted to spread out into larger table areas, right now if you sit down at a table at a 4 or 6 person table, if you're just one person sitting down at it, it's not terribly welcoming for someone else to come and try and use that same space. So there are furnishing options that can provide some screening and privacy for someone to come and study at the same sort of table area, but still feel like they have their own space. So this is something that we would also recommend, especially if people, like I say, are bringing their own devices to try and study with. Teen areas. Current teen area, we feel kind of lacks a certain identity. There is a space kind of reserved for them, but we feel like it could be much more further highlighted and advanced by including some additional types of furnishings, some different kinds of soft seating, mobile furnishings so you can reorganize the space private spaces or group spaces. But there's a lot of different furnishing options these days that allow for this teen area very easily to become a little bit more exciting for the visitors of the library. Children's area, Katie is here tonight. I'm sure she can tell you that there is all kinds of children's programming that is going on at the library today that is really, really popular. One of the main things that we looked at in this study, as we get into building expansion, there's some trade-off that happens with some of the square footage of the children's area. But one of the main things that we looked at is the children's children's area doesn't necessarily have a designated program space that's large enough for how popular their groups are. So they're using the kind of main community program area for all of their events, which is wonderful, but that also detracts from anyone else really being able to utilize that space at the same time. Like I say, these programs are very popular, so they're happening all the time, so it takes up space and time away from other programs that could be happening at the library. So this plan shows a new children's program room going down here in the, and I should orient you all, north is to the right. So I'm gonna say the southeast corner of the library, but we can call it the lower left corner here. So this is a designated children's program area in the children's area of the library. That's one thing that we really wanted to highlight here. One of the other things that we are recommending here is there is actually an old kind of deactivated family restroom in the children's area up in this area. The fixtures were taken out of it, it's no longer in use, but it could very easily kind of be re-energized and reused as a family restroom, which would be highly useful for the children's area in this space, especially as it relates to the different programs that the children's area could have. And then we're going to get into a lot of different types of furnishings that the children's area could be infused with. Currently right now, there's just a series of kind of very typical shelving units kind of throughout the children's area. In today's library, we really try and use a lot of different types of furnishings to highlight the different circulation of books and things like that. I want to touch briefly on the kind of current children's program area. The library's done a great job to try and really provide some excitement in this area. One of the things that we really focus on at FEH is trying to introduce STEM activities into children's areas. And so the library has done a little bit of this inside their program room. They've kind of built a sort of community frontage. I'm sure I'm not using the right word, sort of a community space within that. But we think that we could go even a step further and upgrade this a little bit more with some more acoustical treatments, some more kind of bright colors in this area to bring a little bit more excitement to it. I think there's a really great opportunity in that space to do some more of that. Keep going. Some of the shelving types out in the circulation area could be added with kind of end caps that have really exciting games and playthings on the ends of these end caps. We could include new furnishings like Lego tables and light tables to introduce kids to different learning opportunities, things that could be really exciting for them. Or even kind of more family spaces, whether it be what we call baby gardens. If you wanted to have sort of a seating area that goes around kind of a play area so that families could be together in large groups. Or family workstations, which allow for mother or father and adult to be able to kind of supervise their child in sort of a carrel area while also being able to utilize a workstation and potentially get some work done at the same time. I want to touch on the heritage room real quick. This is a...
Say something quick about the children's room?
Sorry, yeah.
So one of the things we have seen is if you walk into the library, especially if you're maybe a potential person like I did 2 years ago and said, oh, there's a position here in the library, I'm going to go in and check it out. Well, the first thing you do as a parent when you walk into a library is you just kind of scan and look for the children's area. And if you do that in our library, you don't really know where the children's area is. You have to go kind of seek it out. And then it's obvious, oh, this is the children's area. But normally you see these bright colors and things where it immediately takes you over to the children's area. Our children know exactly where that is. They go right there. But a new parent coming in will either ask or they'll just start looking around the library. So That's one of the things we're really looking at is how are people approaching the library, and we don't want people to go in and say, oh, there's no children's area here, and turn around and walk away.
Yeah, that's great. And you pausing me there caused me to remember that I wanted to touch on a couple extra things. I apologize. I'm trying to be brief, but we did do, there's a lot of things built into this study. One of the things I didn't mention is a new office space for the children's librarian. Currently, she sits at a desk right outside this area, which doesn't really have any sort of privacy whatsoever. And it's also taking up valuable square footage. So in this plan, we are designing a new private office in that space. And one of the other things I want to touch on is screening of this area. So currently you walk in the library and there is some idea of where the children's area is, but when there's programming going on or there's lots of kids in that area, it's very noisy. And with the tall volume of the library, that noise can spread very, very easily. So one of the things we're highly recommending is trying to separate this space with a little bit of screening and acoustical separation between the children's area and kind of the rest of the library. So you still have transparency, you still kind of have an understanding of wayfinding, but to try and reduce some of that noise level from carrying across the library. Back to the Heritage Room. As I was mentioning, this is a really gorgeous space. It is utilized currently as the Heritage Room and a little bit for genealogy by the library. There is a small maker's space within a closet that is no longer within this drawing, but there is a small closet that has a small maker's space in it. But we think that this room would be much better utilized as another space to have programming. As Tina mentioned, programming brings a lot of visitors to the library, and this room, although it's wonderful, does not get a ton of use. It's a really great quiet space, but it could also be used as a really, really great program space. And I'm going to slowly segue into saying what we feel would be best for this room is if it were to be kind of grouped together with some other uses and brought into the lower level of the library. So there's a lower section of the library. It's about a quarter of the square footage of the main level that currently is used for storage. And there is lots and lots of space down there for storage, and we're currently using all of it. But that's what happens with storage rooms. If you get space for it, you're going to fill it up with things. So we've discussed with the library that we think that we'd be able to pare down a lot of that storage, and then we can try and use that space for other things, such as bringing the Heritage Room down to this lower level, or potentially making a nice, more grander maker space in the lower level. So those are a couple of uses that we think would be really great to try and include in that lower level space because you have it. Okay, now I'm going to touch just briefly, high level, across the main level, the different things that we talked about for main level spaces, and you'll notice there's kind of a darker shaded portion in the middle of this plan. I'm going to touch on that next, which is an upper level expansion. But across the main level, we talked about areas in the team area. We talked about different study furnishings, study options. We talked about the front entry zone, the lobby entry zone, a potential family restroom when you come in the entry, a potential family restroom in the children's area, and then a whole host of things that happen on the bottom of that plan in the children's area. And in order to do that, sort of everything else sort of gets kind of rearranged in the library. So when this library was designed back in 1998, the original architect had planned to put a second level within this library. You go in there today and it's a really, really tall ceiling. It's lots and lots of space, so there's a reason for that, and that's because they imagined that maybe in the future or as a bid alternate that a second level could be built. 1998 had different structural codes than we do today, so we did go through a structural recalculation to determine that yes, we still can today build a second level within the library space. We wouldn't be able to have 8-foot tall library stack shelves. We probably have to have 6-foot high library stack shelves, but you can definitely get a second floor up there. There is a shaft built that's prepared for an elevator to go into, so we could easily put an elevator in that would get you all the way from the lower level all the way to the upper level. So you could have a lot more circulation space. This is about 3,800 square feet of additional library area for additional staff areas, study areas, that sort of thing, but it's a nice amount of space. So if you were to sacrifice some of the main level space to make more room for teens and make more room for children and make more room for programming, that you can move some of that stuff that's currently on the main level to the upper level. I'm going to touch briefly on the lower level. In the lower level, if you were to build out some of this space, you still have to maintain some of it for mechanical areas. That's currently down there. You could have a much smaller storage room, but you could also have a little bit more library circulation area. You could also have a maker space, and you could also have room for a new heritage room. So there's plenty of space to get all that programming down there. And in order to get between all these different levels, and especially in the lower level, we would cut a large hole in the floor to create a new kind of grand staircase that would happen between the main level, the lower level, and the upper level. So you can try and get more transparency between these different areas of the library. So you wouldn't have to rely on the existing staircases to get downstairs that are back in staff office kind of private areas. You'd have a nice new staircase that ties everything together. So the last thing I want to touch on briefly is other ideas of expansion. We looked at two different options because there were sort of only two options really available with how the current library sits on the site with its existing setbacks. So one of the spots that you could add on outside the building if you weren't interested in trying to expand within it is outside the main entry area. We studied this, and it's really not, we feel that it's not really where you want to expand. It doesn't expand library areas, it would really expand lobby area, and you could get a little bit more program space, but it's sort of in the wrong spot. You really want more program space further in the library. So we sort of eliminated this as a good spot to expand. The other one would be if you were to add onto the building across the alley and connect to the new community center. So this puts more programming space kind of in a favorable spot. The challenge with this obviously is how you manage the different levels and how you manage the different architecture trying to tie these buildings together. So there's also concerns on the life safety side with how you tie these different fire alarm systems and sprinkler systems together, and then traversing the different floor elevations. All these things combined make this a very complicated addition. So we also did kind of eliminate this from being a realistic possibility. So I just kind of want to regroup and go back and talk about the different things that we've talked about and proposed, and the different things we're looking at. So we're talking about expanding the library both kind of upward as well as downward to create more library area, and then smaller scale things like repurposing heritage areas, kind of reinvigorating the children's area, and then kind of a thorough refinishing of the entire library. And then the last bit here is kind of what we imagine as our budget. So I tried to divide this between small scale projects and large scale projects. Kind of the top half of this spreadsheet are all the kind of small scale things, mostly furnishings, lighting, that sort of thing. I didn't really touch on the staff work area, but we did study the idea of trying to make a more efficient staff area that's behind the circulation desk. And then the bottom section is the larger items. So that would be expanding the library both upward and downwards, revitalizing the children's area, and then upgrading all the finishes across the library. So when you add all these things up, you can see all the different individual numbers. But when you add all these up, between the low end and the high end of those costs, you're somewhere between $3 and $4 million.
And that doesn't include soft costs.
Thank you.
There would be additional
Those
costs
are
with that.
those are construction cost opinions. Yeah. And I think that's all I had. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have. Otherwise, I'll let Tina kind of wrap up.
And just one other thing with these costs, these are just what they saw in their study as far as projects that could be included. It does not include things like we had delayed the new roof or getting a new roof because we felt if we're going to be able to do construction, let's do the roof at that point. And we did go up there and look at the roof and said it's really in good shape. So we would still have to consider those as part of the project too if we decide to do it as one complete project. And I should mention, since there's a lot of talk about this tonight, this is also a framework or a concept. We're not asking for approval for this project. We're not asking for funding at this time. What we would like to know is your feedback and any guidance on how you would like us to move forward with the future planning of the library, to maintain it as the true gem of our community that it is.
What's a makerspace?
Makerspace, so there's actually, the community center is also working on a makerspace, and the library has one. But it's a place where you have different kinds of equipment that you wouldn't normally have on your own. So, like the art center might have a makerspace that includes a sewing machine, so people can go in there and sew. They don't have to buy it. What's in ours currently is a scanner and a die cut machine. So a die cut machine is, if you use the Cricut, where you can program it in and it won't cut precisely for you. A die cut is, if you want flowers cut out of felt, you have a choice of these 4 flowers, which one do you want? So that's all we have in our makerspace right now. But a lot of library makerspaces have things like, they might have a computer lab where people can come in and, you know, dissect their computer, or rebuild it the way they want. Some of them have things like, Carol actually asked if the laminator in our basement is for public use. So we have a lot of people who come in that do printing, but they also want to be able to print poster size, and they can't do that. We certainly recommend they visit our local printers to do that, but lamination is another thing that people ask for, and we have ones for staff, but we don't have public ones. But those are some of the things you can see in Makerspace. 3D printing. I don't even know if Central College, does Central College have 3D printers? But I know I've talked to several people in the community, and I haven't heard any 3D printers, so a lot of libraries have that, so community members can take advantage of those.
Any other comments or questions? A lot of work's been done here, so. Budgetary. What do you sense is the urgency in doing something? Well, we'll say right now.
Well, I haven't been around for 8 years working on a project. I've only been here a year and a half, but I have visited a lot of Iowa libraries. And we do have a beautiful library, but if you do come in and look a little closer, you'll notice things like paint is peeling or wallpaper is peeling. Our carpet is still the original. Our HVAC, which is the phase 1, is 30 years old. So I've been to other libraries in Iowa that were built the same time as us, some that FEH has worked on, and they've had upwards of at least 3. The most I've seen is 8 renovations for the same age building as us. So it says a lot for how the building was originally designed. It is wonderful, but we don't have a lot of flexibility. Like I said, you walk in and it's all the same kind of shelving, and you can't just tell where the children's section is. And we don't have any teenagers in here right now, but their space is in front of a couple of the study rooms. So if they're in there playing on their computer or doing the puzzle, and someone wants to go in and use the collaboration room, they have to walk through the teen space, and it doesn't really feel like their space. So there's just, it's a beautiful building, but it's showing its age, and it just needs a major facelift. So if Pella's had 0 in 26 years, and many of our colleagues who have a lot less, I should say, we like outperform in circulation, in programs, in visitors, and they've had many more renovations than we've had. So I would just love to see the community really take care of this asset that we have. And we do have members of the Friends Board here, as well as the Library Board. The Friends Board does do some of our fundraising, and they also are very excited about this project, and if City Council thinks that this is something we should move forward on, they would certainly want to look at fundraising strategies to raise a lot of the funds that would need to be done for this project.
I know that right away, that's what I was looking for when I was reading my packet, because I think the Friends Board is really pivotal to the success of this project. They're a great group of individuals, and anytime I see a collaboration between groups in a city entity, it really promotes the buy-in factor for me. So, and I also want to say, I do believe that the family bathroom is something that should probably get done sooner rather than later, because there are multiple situations where that's necessary, and I'll just cite one, all tired. But my father had Parkinson's disease, and my father loved to read, but I always had to make a decision if he needed to use the facility, use the laboratory. I couldn't take him, because I couldn't take him into the women's, and most assuredly, I was not welcome in the men's. So I think that that is really something that it is past its expiration date and needs to be addressed.
Exactly.
And thank you for
from what I
putting it in.
understand, there was one in there previously, but it was underutilized, and I think because of the location, it's not the most ideal place. If you're using, if you know in your home, if you've got that restroom that's, off the kitchen or something, you hear everything that's going on. And so, it was very underutilized, and they decided to move it over to a nursing room.
It really, what the other issue was, is that people were going in before we were able to get security. It was previous, it had stopped when I came here in January of '07, but after numerous floodings of toilet and redoing things, that's when it was decided that it wasn't worth the use.
And we don't like flooding in the library.
It's definitely outdated. I know at different times I took the special ed students to Knoxville's library, and it's fairly modern and has a nice pop to it. Ours is definitely outdated.
Mr. Mayor, I just may add a comment about that when we go from here. First of all, I'd like to thank the library for all their hard work on this, and as far as moving forward, what we've usually done in the past is we've established an ad hoc committee. We'll have a couple representatives, maybe one or two representatives from the council to work with the library board on this. One of the items I want to bring to council's attention is that on September 1st, we're also going to be reviewing the Parks Master Plan, and there's a couple significant projects in there. So when we talk about committees and assigning them, we probably recommend in some form or fashion a committee to work with the library on this, but there may be other projects that we consider with that committee. So as far as the direction with the committee, we would recommend some sort of ad hoc committee, but again, we may want to see what's on September 1st and what projects we may want to pursue with that before making those determinations on committee assignments as well.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Sounds like a good idea to do that. Okay, thanks. Thanks for all the work.
And thank you for staying late and listening.
All right. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no.
Van Stryland.
Yes.
Branderhorst. Butler. Carlstone.
Yes.
Vanstra.
Yes.